There is a legend in the history of Buddhism that has made people wonder for thousands of years. Why, when faced with a gigantic war elephant in a furious rage, a creature capable of crushing a human being in the blink of an eye, did the Buddha not run away? Did he not try to defend himself, and instead continued calmly walking toward it as though he already knew what was going to happen? This story took place in the city of Rajagaha, a place that witnessed many important events in the Buddha's life. On that day, among the crowded streets where people normally went about their daily lives, a war elephant named Nalagiri suddenly appeared in a state of madness. According to Buddhist tradition, Nalagiri was a war elephant renowned for its ferocity, kept in the royal household and possessing strength far beyond that of ordinary elephants. Yet the danger it posed that day was even more terrifying, because the animal had been deliberately given alcohol and provoked into becoming aggressive and uncontrollable. Once released onto the street, Nalagiri immediately charged forward like a storm, sending the people into a panic. The sound of its heavy footsteps echoed through the streets, shops hurriedly closed their doors, adults pulled children inside, while those farther away dared only to watch through cracks in their doors as the enormous creature came closer and closer. But what made the story most frightening was not simply that Nalagiri was enraged, but the direction in which it was headed. The elephant was not wandering aimlessly through the city. It was being directed toward the road where the Buddha and his disciples were about to pass. The people quickly realized what was happening and tried to warn the Buddha that an uncontrollable war elephant was coming directly toward him. If he had been an ordinary person, his first reaction would probably have been to find a safe place to escape the danger, because standing before a raging war elephant without trying to flee would seem almost like willingly placing oneself before death. Yet the Buddha continued walking. He did not hurry, he did not panic, and he did not allow fear to disturb his mind. As the distance between him and Nalagiri grew shorter, the people around them almost believed that an unavoidable disaster was about to occur. On one side stood a gigantic elephant with bloodshot eyes, its body tense with rage and its strength powerful enough to destroy everything in its path. On the other stood the Buddha, carrying no weapon, protected by no army, and making no attempt to confront the animal with physical force. Nalagiri continued charging forward, but the Buddha remained calm and directed loving kindness toward the animal. According to the traditional account, that very moment brought about a mysterious change. The elephant that had been raging began to slow down, its fury seemed to weaken, and it approached the Buddha in a calmer state before finally bowing down before him. An animal that had terrified the entire city of Rajagaha had become gentle in the presence of a man who had used no violence at all. If we look at the story merely as a mysterious legend, we might believe that this was a miracle, that the Buddha used some supernatural power to subdue Nalagiri. However, if we look more deeply into Buddhist thought, the true wonder may not lie in the fact that an elephant changed its behavior, but in the way the Buddha faced violence without allowing that violence to change his own mind. For in many Buddhist stories, the most frightening enemy is not always an external being. Sometimes it is something quietly dwelling within the human mind: greed, anger, fear, jealousy, and ignorance. Nalagiri can be seen as a symbol of a mind that has not yet been tamed. When calm, an elephant possesses tremendous strength, yet that strength can be directed toward serving human beings. But when it is provoked and loses control, that same strength becomes a threat to everyone around it. The human mind is much the same. When trained, a strong mind can give rise to patience, wisdom, and peace, but when dominated by anger, it can turn a single careless word into the cause of a conflict, transform a small wound into years of resentment, and even cause someone to do things they themselves later regret. Thus, the story of Nalagiri can be understood as a confrontation between two states of mind. On one side, uncontrolled fury; on the other, a mind that has reached a profound state of calmness and awareness. What is remarkable is that the Buddha did not defeat Nalagiri by becoming more aggressive than the elephant. He did not use violence to answer violence, nor hatred to oppose hatred, because if he had done so, he would only have created another cycle of anger. In the spirit of Buddhism, loving kindness is not weakness or surrender in the face of evil. It is the ability to see the suffering and delusion of a being without cultivating hatred toward it. That is why the image of the Buddha standing before Nalagiri carries such profound power. He saw the danger, yet he did not allow fear to take control of his mind. He saw aggression, yet he did not respond with aggression. He saw a being driven by agitation, yet he did not regard it as an enemy that had to be destroyed. Perhaps this is the deepest secret hidden within a story that seems, on the surface, to be nothing more than a tale about a fierce elephant. Ordinary people often believe that in order to defeat someone stronger than themselves, they must find an even greater strength with which to fight back. But the Buddha revealed another path. Sometimes the greatest strength does not lie in the ability to strike back, but in the ability to keep one's own mind from being dragged into the state of the opponent. When someone becomes angry with us, our natural reaction is to become angry in return. When we are insulted, we want to retaliate. When we are hurt, we want the other person to feel the same pain. In this way, one person's anger becomes another person's anger, hatred is passed from one person to another, and in the end no one truly wins. But if one person can stop, remain mindful, and refuse to accept that fire, the cycle can come to an end right there. Nalagiri, therefore, is not merely an elephant in a legend. It can also be seen as an image of the very anger that runs through our own minds. Perhaps everyone carries a Nalagiri within their life. The only difference is the form it takes. Sometimes it is a person who betrayed us, a sentence that wounded us, an injustice we cannot forget, a relationship that ended but left behind resentment, or simply a burst of anger that arises in a single moment and makes us say things we can never take back. We often believe that we are fighting against someone else, but very often the person suffering the most is ourselves, because every time we remember the old event, we once again place ourselves in that state of anger, pain, and unease. The Buddha's lack of fear before Nalagiri does not mean that he disregarded danger or treated life carelessly. Rather, it can be understood more deeply as his refusal to allow fear to control his mind. Fearlessness does not mean recklessness, nor does it mean that a person must stand still in the face of every danger. Awareness lies in seeing a situation exactly as it is and not allowing blind emotions to destroy our ability to remain clear-minded. This is also why the story continues to move people after thousands of years, because it asks a question that is deeply connected to the life of every one of us. If one day life brings a Nalagiri before us, what will we do? Will we become angry because someone else is angry? Will we seek revenge because we have been hurt? Or will we be calm enough not to become part of that anger? Perhaps the most important message of the story of Nalagiri is not that the Buddha could magically transform a fierce elephant into a gentle one, but that when the mind becomes sufficiently peaceful, a person is no longer easily dragged into cycles of fear and hatred. An elephant outside may be tamed through strength, time, and training, but the elephant within the human mind is far more difficult to tame, because it has no clear shape and often appears only when we are touched at our deepest wounds. There are times when we believe we have found peace, yet a single careless word is enough to make anger erupt. There are things we believe we have forgotten, yet one unexpected memory can make the heart hurt as though the event had happened only yesterday. That is when the wild elephant within begins to run. And the lesson from the story of the Buddha and Nalagiri is perhaps not that we must become invincible against every danger, but that we must learn to recognize anger before it controls our actions, recognize fear before it turns into panic, and recognize hatred before it becomes part of who we are. In Buddhist tradition, Nalagiri eventually became gentle and bowed before the Buddha, creating a powerful symbolic image of the strength of loving kindness. A war elephant was not defeated by weapons, but transformed by a